Hey, welcome and thank you for listening or watching. I'm so glad to have Laura Sanner here with us on the Focus Forward Business Podcast today. Laura is a physical therapist, practice owner, and the author of Pregnancy Pain, Fix Your Pain and Become the Boss of Your Body, Tips and Tricks from a Physical Therapist and Mother. I am Sturdy McKee, business coach and advisor, and your host for the Focus Forward Business Podcast. And Laura, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me, Sturdy.
Oh, yeah. So will you just tell our listeners who you are, what you do, and how you got here?
Yeah, so I'm a physical therapist. I wanted to be a PT since I was in high school. Went to the University of Delaware. Thought I would end up working with prosthetics, but fell in love with treating back pain before that. So I've been an outpatient for almost 14 years, primarily focusing on back pain, but anything else that somebody could come in with. Picked up my dry needling certificate 2.5 years ago, when that was becoming more and more asked for. So I added that to my repertoire. Yep, so that's the physical therapy side of things. I was
Mhm.
working for about 10 years, got my kids through diapers. We have two girls. And my husband, TJ, and I had always kind of wanted to start our own practice. And after we kind of got through the diaper years, we ran out of excuses not to. So we co-founded Atlas Physical Therapy between Baltimore and Annapolis, Maryland in June of 2016.
Cool. And so how did you tell us a little bit more about how you got started in business, and was Atlas your first business?
For me, yes. For TJ, it was his second. He had done a waterfowl guided hunting business.
Hmm.
So he had already kind of tried and failed and found the good, had already tried out some of, the accounting and some of the other business side of things on a smaller scale. So that was helpful. We're yin and yang. I'm the PT, he's the business side. So it is helpful to have, two people that are really compassionate about it. So he did have some experience on the business side, but I was primarily on the clinical side.
Okay. And you said you had no excuses, but why? Why did you decide to go out on your own and start a business?
Uh, I was working for another small family clinic,
Mhm.
and the owner moved out of state. And after that happened, it was just kind of a trickle down. It just seemed like leadership was more disconnected. Things kind of lost its sparkle. I found that I didn't really get to know my patients as well. So we wanted to kind of slow things down and kind of really make sure that you got to know your patients. They didn't shuffle around from therapists. So when we opened, it was just me and TJ sitting there waiting for the phone to ring. I saw one patient my first day, and it was my college roommate. And I had to hang out until like 6:30 p.m. until she could drive down from 40 minutes away and come after work. So that's kind of how it started. Fast forward now, there's 5 therapists.
Mhm.
And we do still stick to the, 1 or 2 therapists on your team. So we are doing that side of why we opened it so that we could get to know our people better.
Cool. So one of the things I encounter and see, business owners are out there thinking they're the only ones kind of encountering challenges or obstacles because, we share the good stuff with each other, but we don't always share what, you know, the challenges. And I get to see behind the curtain. So I know everybody, including me, are experiencing them all the time. So what challenges are you currently facing and how are you working to overcome them?
Good question. Recently, we're not quite through the COVID pandemic yet. So the whole safety thing, sourcing
Sure.
the items and digesting the information from the governing bodies of, how to keep your patients and people safe. We've gotten through that pretty well. We've handled that. Um, I think now the trouble we're having is that since the road has changed, the landscape has changed so
Hmm.
dramatically for healthcare. We're early 2021 now, but 2020 saw so much change. You kind of felt like you had to go back to the drawing board and throw spaghetti at the wall and see what stuck. Like the tried and true, hey, we've got a waiting list of a couple weeks. We were open for about 4 years when all that happened. And then now all of a sudden, we don't. Um,
Right.
I think just, I don't know, we had to kind of go back to the trial and error, and we had more error because there was,
Mhm.
everything was changing. So I think the biggest thing that helped us kind of get through the challenges was leaning on our team. Sometimes you feel like you're just on an island, you're the small business owner, nobody knows what I'm going through, martyr kind of thing. But
Right.
the team that we have is really good. So the more we kind of bounce ideas off of them and then just, shut up and listen, we're getting some really good solutions and ways to navigate the new road from our team.
Okay, great. Yeah, crowdsourcing I love it, love it. Um, so tell us a little bit more about your book and how you decided to write it.
Okay. So I actually brought a copy.
Sure.
um, Pregnancy Pain, Fix Your Pain and Become the Boss of Your Body, Tips and Tricks from a Physical Therapist and Mother. You can find it on Amazon and Barnes and Nobles. So I've wanted to do this for a while. I have 2 kids and I did have pregnancy pain, especially with the second one. My husband is 6'5" and I'm 5'2". So, I carried a big kid and I was still working at the time and chasing
Mhm.
a toddler with the second one. So I kind of, same thing, trial and error, and then just kind of writing my journey out on paper. So it's a little bit storytelling. It's a lot, what does work. I give a couple anecdotes of things I tried that were just like in hindsight, like why, you thought that was going to work. So it's a combination of exercises and like posture. The first 2 chapters are relevant to anybody. I actually had a grandpa leave a review on Amazon that he was like, I bought this for my daughter who just had a kid, and I read through the first couple chapters. He's like, and I slept better last night than I have in years. So
Nice.
I wrote it to help more people. I'd love to get it in the hands of every pregnant person possible. I'm doing that maybe a couple copies a day. So that makes me feel really good, and to hear the feedback from not just moms, but their whole team of
Right.
support. I don't know, I just felt like I had a unique perspective of, I've recently done it. I've got the healthcare side, and then I'm also a gear junkie. We're big on reviews and we check things online and we test them, whether it's in the clinic or at home.
Mhm.
So I've started doing some gear reviews too. So it's just a unique, I did a Google search and Amazon search. A pregnancy pain book by a physical therapist wasn't really out there.
Right.
So
Okay.
I did think that there was a need. We looked at other ideas, maybe back pain or something that a lot of people might encounter. There's 100 books on that. So
Sure.
it's a very nichey book, but it hadn't been written yet. So I thought there was a need. So that's kind of what led me towards that topic.
No, that's great. That's great. So what's the biggest thing you've learned recently that you wish you had learned, 10 years ago?
Oh, let's see here. Time management, probably.
Mhm.
Um, you know, we ran out of excuses, not to open the business. It was always, oh, we're too busy with the kids, or oh, TJ worked nights and weekends, and how are we ever going to sit down at the same time when we're both rested and hash this out? It's just one thing after the next. Kind of the same thing with the book. I'm working, the kids are, needing my attention. Um, and
So,
then you have.
so I mean, as you said, you're a mom, couple of small kids, running a business, also an author now. And what are the time management tips?
Schedule it.
Yeah.
Schedule the hour. I found that we had family dinner plans Thursdays and Sundays. Fridays and Saturdays, you're usually either whooped or you're hanging out with friends. You're not going to write a book on a Friday night. Like, you're just not going to. That's not realistic. So for me, after I got the kids in bed, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I said, I can give an hour 3 days a week, even if it takes me 10 minutes just to kind of, calm my brain, get on track. If I can sit down for at least an hour, 3 days a week, and just kind of work through first the outline, then, different sections of the book, and then kind of read through it. So I just kind of bit it off in 1 hour sections. And it was just kind of like, hey, I'm going to go do my book,
Right.
with TJ, he was still up, the kids were in bed, like, hey, if you need to chit chat about whatever, like, this is my hour, like, this is my protected hour,
Right.
nobody talk to me, like, I'm going to go work on the book. So if you can find time for your passion project, just, fiercely protect the hour, whatever time of the day that would be for you.
That's great advice. Thank you. Um, so and this might be the same answer, but there may not be. So last several years, being a small business owner, author, what new belief or behavior has improved your life beyond just the scheduling?
Um, belief or behavior. Um, I guess besides the time management being the behavior, I
Hmm.
guess the belief would be that, you know, that you're the expert. You kind of, the way I wrote the book was I signed up for a class. Um, it's called the Self-Publishing School. So one of the things
Hmm.
that you have to go through in the class is called Imposter Syndrome. So you're writing this book, you're in a groove, you get it all on paper, and then like the closer that you get to sharing it with the world, you're like, well, who am I to write this book? I'm not an author. I'm just, a PT and a mom that's working on this late night, like why would anybody like what makes me an expert, So I think that you just have to kind of get out of your own way and get the ego out
Uh-huh.
of the way and say, hey, I am a PT with this many years experience and I've been through this. If there's a new mom or somebody that's on their second pregnancy, kind of similar situation, and I can fast track their success,
Hmm.
then you do know something that they don't know. And you just have
Right.
to kind of kind of puff up your, hey, I am an expert. This is my experience. 80% of it might work for you. Try it. You might find a better way along the way. So I think just getting the imposter syndrome, like actually realizing and owning that you do have something to share that's valuable for people that don't have the same experience that you've had.
Well, no, that's a great point because I mean, from the outside, it's like, well, yeah, obviously you're the expert. You're the doctor of PT. You, you've been through it. You've helped hundreds or dozens at least of other people go through the same thing, right? And yeah, I've run into this. Yeah, I love that thought because having gone down that road before from the outside, it's obvious, but we still second guess ourselves and think, should I, can I, am I love that. Thanks. Um, so what's one of your favorite business books or one that you're currently reading and what's important about that?
Um, so with the physical therapy on the clinical side,
Hmm.
for a couple years at Atlas, I was the clinical director, and I was finding I was having trouble with the difficult conversations, and
Mm-hmm.
that I really hadn't had any formal leadership training. So I was looking for leadership books. So one of the ones I most recently read was The Ideal Team Player by Patrick
Hmm.
Lencioni. I listened to it on audiobook in like 20-minute bites, between dropping the kids and on my way to work. Um, and at first it was, kind of like the interview process, like, hey, what do you look for? But I was also looking at it with the lens of, ooh, am I the ideal team player? You want to,
Mm.
if you're in a leadership seat, you want to set a good example. So I looked at it from both lenses and yeah, it was a good one. I would recommend it.
Cool, cool. Thank you. We'll put a link to that as well as your book in the notes and stuff, comments below. Um, so any other thoughts that you want to leave us with or leave any of the business owners with
Mm.
or we didn't hit on?
I don't know. I'm just reading through our notes here. One of the things, so the book, I never thought I'd be an author. I just thought I'd be, a staff therapist. And then, all of a sudden, now you're a clinic owner. Never thought I'd be an author. We had met the self-publishing school owner at a physical therapy conference 2 years prior to actually signing up to be an author. And it was one of those too many excuses things like, I don't have time. When am I going to do this? Not right now. And then when they came around the second time, it was about 2 years later. It was January of 2020. One of the slides that they had kind of really resonated with me is a Zig Ziglar quote. It says, if you wait until all the lights are green before you leave home, you'll never get started on your trip to the top. So it's kind of like, you're always going to have the juggling of the kids and the work and, getting dinner on the table, and that's not going to go away. So how can you rethink about things? How can you prioritize your time different if it is important to write the book? And TJ's sitting next to me and he's just elbowing me like, this is your time. You've got to do it. And at the same time, I had just started with a small group with my church. It was the first time I'd ever signed up for one of those. It was Tuesday nights. It was the night TJ picked the girls up, and I usually worked late. And I was reading a book called You Are the Girl for the Job. I was on the second chapter. And between like the green light and the you're the girl for the job, it was just kind of like, all right, the universe is speaking, like this is the time to write the book. So I would say the same for anybody. Like, make the time. You're the person for the job. You have a unique experience. Why not share it?
Cool. Thank you. Thanks for that. And how can our listeners find you?
Good question. Thank you. There is a website for the book. It is pregnancypainbook.com. There you can find the link for the Facebook group that we have. It'll take you to where you can
Oh,
buy the
great.
book. Yeah, and then I'm also, there are YouTube videos. There's a link on the website as well. So
Mhm.
all of the pictures in the book, I can show some off here. Um, there's pictures in the book, but if you are more of like a see it and then do it type,
Mhm.
there's YouTube videos that walk you through all the exercises in the book. And then there's also a growing bank of gear reviews for the things that I actually link
Great.
to in the book. And if you go on the audiobook, um, not the audiobook. If you go on the Kindle reader for
Mhm.
Amazon, it'll link you back to the gear that I have found the most helpful for pregnancy and posture in general. So if you go to the
Cool.
website, that's all there. There's Pregnancy Pain Book Instagram. Yeah, so those we're on most of the social media platforms.
No, that's awesome. I love how you've integrated that to bring all those resources together. That's really, really cool. Well, thank
Thank
you
you.
so much, Laura. Appreciate you being on.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
Of course.